You know, B2B has to think more like B2C. We've been discussing that this morning. Customers are more than just an order, right? Business customers have to feel like valued customers, just like that moment with the business card. But this is easier said than done, of course, with many organizations, as you know, currently set up with a kind of one-size-fits-all approach. So how do organizations move toward this new and more demanding reality and harness the very success that we're all after? Well, with some great ideas right now and some wonderful insight, we welcome a speaker who has more than 23 years of experience in digital marketing and clients across many industries and around the world. So please welcome President North American Services Organization for Acquity Group, which is part of Accenture Interactive, Jay Dettling. All right, it's a long title. Have fun.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome to Chicago, by the way. As one of the co-hosts, I'd like to welcome you to our great city and this venue. We happen to, at Acquity Group, have had a number of events here, employee gatherings, and we love the facility, love the way it's set up. Hopefully later tonight you'll get to partake in some of the views. We have some good weather here in Chicago. So again, welcome and thank you for investing the time and sitting with us for a couple days. I think this is a great topic building from this morning. I actually was tempted to scrap my presentation and just go to overheads because that was so cool. I love the old school aspect that brought to kind of a new wave conversation. But customers are more than an order. And I think, you know, as I sort of soak in the group that's here, you know, a lot of you are certainly leading the charge. And so we have really a diverse audience, which makes it a challenge to always be relevant. So no pressure on the rest of us this afternoon. But what I mean by that is many of you are already, you know, leaps and bounds ahead of some of the other organizations here. Some of you are evaluating how do we take the next steps, what's most important, what do we do first, what do we do second, what do we do third. So I hope that you'll glean something from this that gives you some takeaways as you go back to your organization. So in terms of who I am, I'm president of Acquity Group. You've heard us a little bit today. We worked with a number of organizations, and what you see here is just kind of a quick kaleidoscope of some of the organizations we've worked with Hybris. We started working with Hybris in 2010, and I think I've had the luxury of working both in B2C and B2B arrangements. We originally started focused on B2B, and really there's been a tremendous upsurge in market acceptance in the B2C realm for the Hybris platform and all the value proposition that it provides. And many of you really are managing both kind of channels, if we want to call them channels. And so I think, you know, there's a lot of synergy that can be gleaned from there. We focus on e-commerce enablement and digital marketing, so that gives us perspective, hopefully, to talk about the subject matter today. So in terms of what I'm going to talk about, where are my slides? So let's set some context. You like that? Let's set some context. What's happening with the B2B buyer? You'll see, I'm not sure, I don't think it made its way to all the, because it would have fallen on the floor probably. But we did a procurement study, a B2B procurement study, I'll hold up like this. And it's outside on a table for you to grab. And there's a lot of great factoids. I'll talk about a few of those that really just set some context. What's happening with the B2B buyer today? What sort of influences are they being influenced by? And, you know, what are their motivations? Where are they going? What direction is that going? It sets the stage for, really the second part is, you know, trends to monitor, really themes. And I kind of tried to boil that up into a couple, three themes that we'll sort of talk about through the remainder of the discussion. And then, you know, how can B2B mimic B2C? And, you know, we're already to print with some of these slides. I don't know that mimic's the right word. I would probably say observe, learn, leverage. Because you don't want to just be a me too. You want a point of differentiation. But I think there's a lot that you can glean from your B2C counterparts, maybe your B2C channels that you have in your organizations. Because at the end of the day, we are all consumers. And so the people that are sitting behind, at one point, green screens that were doing procurement, that were deciding what products to buy, are the same ones that are shopping Amazon. Same ones that are shopping C Wonder. Same ones that are shopping J. Crew. So those are where their expectations are being set. And so that's setting the stage for their expectations. And then lastly, where do you go from here? You know, hopefully I'll reserve enough time because that's important. It's about a framework. What do you take away from this discussion and bring back, and how do you challenge the plan that you have? I'm encouraged by just a lot of the sort of sidebar conversations I've had. It seems like everybody has a plan. Maybe it's not always the best plan, or maybe you have identified things that you need to do more to it to enhance it, but everyone has a plan. So maybe I'll offer some things that you can enhance your plan with. So as we move forward here, again, setting the stage, I'm not going to overwhelm you with too many stats, but I think just to walk through some of these, it's important. So 40% of corporate buyers spend at least half of their budget online. So that's a lot of people. That's a lot of buying. That's a lot of activity that's happening online. And so they're engaging in a lot of different channels. Their expectations are increasing. 57% have purchased online at least once. Maybe they're not doing it all the time. They've purchased at least once, and they plan to increase their budget so in the next buying cycle. So that's important. You know that more consumers, more buyers are being attracted to the channel. So you have to step back and say, are we easy to do business with? And I'll talk about that a little bit later. The one that stands out to me the most, because when I think about B2B, all the complexities with contract terms, specialized catalogs, and all the other, what I'll call stickiness factors that you've enabled within your business, certainly, hopefully, affinity towards the salespeople or the sales channel adds to that stickiness. The fact is, 71% of B2B buyers are willing to look at something else and step outside of that relationship that they have with you if it's easier to buy, if it's easier to do business with another organization. So that should be scary. The competitive advantage, the stickiness that you've built into those organizations is threatened. And I think the last two, I probably would equate those to kind of a audience demographic, and maybe that sounds consultant speak, but more of the consumer demographic, a younger demographic. They grew up digital. So the whole concept of buying online, whether you're B2B or B2C, they expect that they'll buy online. So 90% of buyers in that 18 to 35 category make company purchases online. And that's natural. It's not, oh, hey, this is new, this is cool, I don't have to fax it anymore, I don't have to call it in, I don't have to use the catalog. That's their expectation. And we all need to realize that. And I think just adding to that, it comes up probably in every conversation, new business conversation that I'm engaged in. What about Amazon supply? Well, these folks are expecting that's natural. It's not new. It's not different. It's sort of, yeah, I'll buy from Amazon supply. So 63% of that same demographic have purchased from Amazon supply. So there are many more facts to talk about, but I think those were the most salient, which with the one around 71% standing out for me, because that means people will shop you. They will look at other solutions if you don't have an overall experience that's easy to do business with. So boiling this, or raising this up, boiling this down, however you want to talk about it, into three sort of main categories. What we talk about is consumer expectations have evolved. You might be surprised that I'm not talking about mobility and some of the bold words here, but that's all part of it. Consumer expectation has certainly evolved. They want information, all the information they can consume wherever they are. They want it 24/7 by 365. They want it in the form factor in the situation they're in. I don't like to use the term use cases because that sounds like I'm building a system, but I talk in more scenarios. They want information in scenarios. They might be out in the field. They might have a smartphone. They might have a tablet. They might be sitting in their office. They might be at home on their desktop computer. They want the information. They want to interact with you and buy from you in all those different scenarios. And I think that's really what you need to take to heart, what I'd like you to take to heart as you think about planning for your next experience and learning from B2C leaders and what they're doing. Secondly, I've joked about this. I think, I sometimes say the internet was built for this, right, around the desire to compare. That is inherent to our expectation in the internet and in the online channel in terms of being able to look at product attributes, being able to look at price, being able to look at different product assortments. And again, even though you have those connections with your consumers with regards to contract terms, contract pricing, they're going to look outside of that relationship. And they're going to look for maybe organizations that don't have the full assortment or the full breadth or the pick up the next day or some attribute that you have in your relationship, but they're going to shop you and they're going to compare. And that's going to pose a threat to you. I had I'll spare the name, but I had a great conversation at lunch where the consumers were actually, of the B2B channel, were starting to compare against this organization's B2C channel. So that creates all sorts of challenges, right, in terms of setting the pricing. Because you might go up or down on different categories based on the relationship with your customer. So maybe an obvious point, but worth saying. And then the imminent threat from B2C. So our B2C leaders have invested tremendously in their distribution, in their marketing, in their e-business channel, both from a technology and people standpoint. They're looking at how they can take market share, certainly in that space, but they're looking at how they can expand their business. Amazon Supply is a great example, but they're not the only ones. You look at a lot of the conversations that we're talking or engaged in today are with manufacturers, and they're looking to go direct to consumer and sometimes more direct to business. So you have a threat there, and certainly you need to watch it from an imminent threat from B2C. So I guess you could say I like ideas in threes. So how can we leverage, learn, share in terms of from our B2C counterparts? So really think about it in three ways. And we've heard about it today, so I almost feel like I'm late to the game with this term, at least this morning or today. This whole idea of customer centricity. We've talked about before, we talk a lot at Acquity Group about consumerization that's happening in the B2B channel. That's really what I'm talking about, and that's really what many of you are actually leading. Some of you are just getting on board, and some of you are evaluating. I doubt many of you are saying, hey, I don't get it, that doesn't make sense. But if you are, certainly hope this resonates with you. Then the whole concept of omni-channel strategy. Really, it's kind of funny to think back. We used to think that consumers were dedicated to one channel. The reality is, and there's a lot of statistics I'll talk about, consumers are bouncing all around, and they're not predictable in that manner. They want the product, they want the information, they want to make the order with you at the point of the moment of truth in some ways, but at the point of need. And so that need can take a lot of different form factors, and you need to think about that as you're building your next emerging experience. And then I'll highlight probably 5 or 6 universal features. I'll kind of talk about some of the R&D that we're engaging in. I sort of blew right through the introduction. So at Acquity Group, it's been exciting over the last couple months. We've been acquired by Accenture Interactive, and so I'll highlight some of the R&D I've already been exposed to that we're doing to benefit CPGs in the consumer channel when I talk about some universal features. So the consumer-centric approach. I'd be remiss if I didn't have a consulting slide that had a metaphor to talk about this, but so really, at the end of the day, just like the slide says, we need to focus on the buyer, not the product. I think I heard snippets of it today, and I'm sure you could look inward at some of your site experiences. Many times that first site experience is really just an emulation of the product catalog, right? And what that means is, or what that means to me is many times it is just a taxonomy of products that maybe came out of your general ledger or your system of record, but it's not organized typically in the manner the buyer wants to procure that product, meaning it's organized by product hierarchy, which I think you have to have to some degree, but maybe it could also be organized by task. What's that buyer trying to do? What's that decision maker trying to do? And what is the situation or scenario in which they're thinking of buying or thinking of researching? The other phenomenon that has definitely been evident to us as we've worked in B2B that is different, I guess I would say, than B2C is a bifurcated process of buying. And many times there's a lot of workflow, but I'll just simplify. The decision maker, the researcher, the person that ultimately wants the product is many times different than the person who's actually making the procurement decision. So again, it's focus on the buyer, focus on their needs, because those are two distinct customer profiles or personas that you need to think about. So, another way to talk about this too, and I thought this would soften it up or humanize it, create an emotional connection. All of these individuals are consumers, and all of them could be customers of you all from a B2B standpoint. So, a woman shopping a grocery aisle, a gentleman making a purchase on his couch with his desktop computer. Again, looking at different scenarios in which they're engaging in that buying experience. Another gentleman or person really looking through their smartphone, gathering product information, probably reading a UPC code. I'll talk about some things that we foresee with that. And then, obviously some other individuals looking at a tablet, and they're sitting in a car. Who plans for that, right? So there's a lot of different experiences that we think are important when you focus on the buyer and not just the product. A couple examples here. Again, I thought this was interesting. Obviously, it's an Acquity customer, and that's interesting in one respect, but more interesting in terms of an experience. So Black Diamond, a little sidebar here. Black Diamond is a mountaineering equipment provider, not something that all of us know. They actually invented the carabiner, and we were able to deploy a new experience for them that really is more of a lifestyle experience e-commerce site. And so I'm not suggesting B2B should whole hog jump into that whole experience sort of realm. But what we found with this organization, and just to give you a perspective, so if the whole point is to sort of understand and learn what's happening with B2C, in this situation, they wanted certainly rich product information so people could research. Obviously, if you're climbing, it's probably pretty important you have the right carabiners and ropes and all that sort of stuff. You can tell I'm not a mountain climber. But they also wanted to get rich content. And so what you see on the side is the experience. It's user-generated content. It's curated content from the organization. And that's how they want to connect with their consumers. So I bet there's a class or a whole segment, multiple segments of your consumers that are looking for the same thing. I think one of the biggest challenges that we all face together in sort of providing these next generation experiences is getting the content right. Not only the product detail, but all the rich content that enables the buying experience. So thought that was a great example. And then, a little call out back to Susie and Mind Safety. So here's an example, original site. So we engaged with Mind Safety to help take them to the next step in terms of their evolution of the online channel. Originally, it was more of a product catalog site with some information on the right about the product detail, okay? So pretty straightforward. What we've been able to do with them, and certainly assisting them, is move to more of an emotional connection. At least that's how I like to think of it. Hopefully, Susie, you support that. So what we have on the right, the left side, my right, your left, is the homepage. And you can see it sort of connecting, or hopefully connecting, with people that are environmentally conscious. It's more of an emotional connection that they're making with their consumers. And maybe even more importantly, the product detail page has been enhanced dramatically. There's a lot more photos. Obviously, if you're buying a safety harness, that's a lot different than buying a sweater from J.Crew. Has some pretty serious implications, but the point is, consumers are expecting that. They're expecting that rich imagery. They're expecting to immerse themselves in the product detail, and it all goes back to content. But I think the point here is move away from the product catalog, understand the buyer, the mindset that they're in, and how do they want to engage with the product. So now, omni-channel strategy. I think a good way to sort of set the stage here is to blast through a few facts, and I promise this is the last sort of factoid slide. You have a whole host of presentations today. But I think one of the ones that we talk about a lot, or we're asked about a lot, is the whole concept of Amazon. They're certainly engaging in real-world local distribution centers. They're establishing pickup centers in a lot of major retailers. And I often quote my brother-in-law. He lives in New York, obviously a highly dense urban area. He uses Amazon Prime to buy all his groceries. So, I mean, that's an example of a sort of a younger generation fully expecting to use Amazon to engage in their daily commerce activities. So you need to think about what additional services. It's not just the website. It's not just their search. It's not just their recommendations. That was a funny call out earlier this morning in terms of recommendations on the canisters. But it's about the whole experience. What are they providing to the consumer? What was missing in that value proposition for the consumer? And the idea of being able to pick it up literally that day or deliver is huge in those densely populated urban areas. Showrooming. I'm sure most of us have seen that, or maybe even been the ones doing the showroom. In the consumer electronics industry, over 35% of consumers are engaged in showrooming. We could ask Best Buy, what that's done to their business and how that's caused them to morph. So that's a big deal that major retailers and B2C organizations are worried about. I talked about the third one already. Manufacturers and brands are aggressively moving to the online channel. The reason is they want to gain consumer insights. Their customers are their distribution channel. Consumer insights around buying patterns. And they also want to learn about how do we organize the content the same way we had expertise in the physical world around shelf space? How do we do the same thing around digital content? How do we make sure we can package that up and ship that to Amazon, ship that to Walmart, ship that to Target, or whoever their customers are? But they're going direct to consumer so they can do product trials. So there's a big push in this area, and certainly one that you need to take note of. We work with Walmart too out of San Francisco, and what we've learned is half of their online orders are picked up in the store. And over 60% of the retailers that have been surveyed don't even have that capability where buy online, pick up in store. That's a huge push. It's kind of ironic in some ways because we've been talking to customers, some of the leading ones, who have been enabling this for the last 5 or 6 years. But it seems like in the last 6 to 12 months, it's been an amazing push. And everyone's trying to do this because they're just recognizing that customer represents more value. It's not just that single order. It's not just convenience, but you get them in the store and you can upsell and cross-sell to that customer. And then a couple other things. If we were doubting it, these certainly support it, and I think these numbers will just increase. But over 45% of online shoppers, so people with intent already to shop online, are going to cross-channel shop. So it doesn't mean they're always going to start and do their research sitting on their couch with their tablet and then go to their computer and then go buy it in the store. They could do it in any one of those orders. It depends on the situation they're in, and I think that's what we need to recognize. And then lastly, the whole idea, we're getting better with our analytics capability and cause effect. Over 40% of retail sales are influenced by online activity. So that's a big deal. So what does this mean? So as I talked about, buy online, pick up in store is a huge growing trend. So for many of you, because I think it's diverse based on your business, many of you have distribution centers. If you haven't thought about enabling that capability, you might want to understand what it would take to do that, look into that, as well as what does the customer want? What's their expectation? Some of you have that was your model, so that was your value prop before. But that's a big area that we see, as I talked about, our customers looking into. Some other sort of results, and I thought this would be interesting because it's not all about selling products online. Sometimes it's lead generation. So we've been working with General Motors across the Cadillac brand, the Chevrolet brand, and many other their brands to really enable a lead generation system with their mobile experiences, rich imagery, the ability to build a car, so on and so forth. But they saw a 650% year-over-year increase in traffic to their websites. What does that mean? That means they're generating more customer interest. That's a big deal to them. That gets people to request a quote. That gets people in the dealerships. It obviously drives selling automobiles. And then, just another fact, 400% year-over-year increase in the gallery views. So that's another section of their web experience or online experience. Tommy Bahama, so again, a retailer lifestyle brand. We deployed an in-store kiosk for them, and they saw that uptick 56%. So again, you probably have a plethora of stats. These are some stats that we just collected that we're able to talk about. And then another customer in the Northeast, Destination Excel, we deployed a new mobile site, and that's really giving them a lot of sort of increase in in-store affinity or in-store traction in terms of online couponing and connection with the retail associates. So what does this mean for B2B? Really, we probably could have done you could probably have a whole nother hour just on this slide because, in hearing the panel this morning and hearing some of the discussions, many of these 6 points were already talked about. But I think first and foremost, when you think about sort of extending beyond what you've already done today, what you've already done, and that's, certainly takes a lot of effort to kind of build the online catalog, enable it for transactional capability, connect it to your back end. There's so much more that you need to do. So the ability to grow your customer base. You're certainly going to be able to reach new customers in new mediums, maybe new customers that weren't touched by your sales force, if you have a sales force, for example. The discussion today around air gas is a great one. So maybe it isn't always about driving the transaction. It's driving customer intimacy. It's driving reduced sort of increasing self-service to reduce costs and giving customers more control. So it's not always even just about reducing costs. It's about giving them control of their account and of their information. Certainly adds to Salesforce sales capability. The last thing I'll say, which is probably overlooked, and I put it on here on purpose, employee retention. So many of you, because I've talked to a lot of you directly, are looking at how do I build the talent? How do I find the digital marketers? How do I find the e-commerce technologists? How do I find the functional folks that understand this whole change that we've been going about for the last 10 or 15 years? And so you want to represent your organization as a digital vanguard, somebody that's moving forward. And so by doing some of these things, it's kind of an indirect benefit, but it might be a strategic play for you to attract and retain talent that is expecting and evaluating, should I go here or should I go here? Who's more digitally savvy? Where would I like to take my career? So I think employee retention is important as well. Certainly we have situations where we've worked with some clients who have just a really rich sales force. And certainly some of those folks are migrating and they're not as digitally savvy. And so the customer base is expecting something different. So that's very important in terms of how you think about the strategic benefits. A shout out to Grainger. I think it's a wonderful story, and Paul Miller will talk about some aspects later today, so I won't steal any of his thunder, but just a great value proposition in terms of having a strong retail brand, distribution center brand, and the ability to service customers had nothing to do with digital. It was the idea of extending the product catalog, rich product catalog, but they could get anything within a day or two that a customer needed. Almost, I think the promise might have been 24 hours. They've really enhanced that value proposition by going across different devices, providing different capabilities. And what I'll note here is you see different devices. It's not always, we talk about this, it's not miniaturizing your web experience. It's about mobilizing it. And what that means to us, it's stepping back and looking at the scenarios that you're trying to enable. Because again, it might be finding a store. It might be finding product information. You might not be looking to actually sort of consummate the transaction on a smartphone. It may make sense in your business to do that, but not all the time. So we like to use the term mobilize and think of those scenarios. All right, looking at some universal features. Again, some of this may seem straightforward, but I'll talk about it. These are what we sort of extract and look at. What are some of the leading B2C organizations doing? What are table stakes? And I would use that term very strongly. What are table stakes that we would expect any leading B2B organization to sort of embark upon and make sure they've built into their site? I must say some of my screen grabs, I couldn't get a lot of them because they were behind sort of authenticated experiences. So bear with me on that. But personalization is very important. So especially in the B2B sense, because you are authenticating the user, you have a great opportunity to provide targeted offers, provide an ability to do a quick reorder. Again, a lot of organizations have sort of what I'll call, it almost looks like an Excel site. You know, it's like quick order entry, punch in the SKUs. You know, that is important, but people want to be able to quickly access their previous order, items previously ordered. And then certainly a lot of you are should be able to offer fully branded customer sites. Again, not consumer, but customer sites for your B2B customers. So that's where personalization comes into play. Search, I'll talk about that. I'll kind of do a good, better, best and talk about that. You know, certainly search can be looked at from two perspectives. Internal to the site, and there's a lot that you want to, there's sort of, again, I'll probably overuse the term minimum standard that you should probably shoot for. And there's also search to be thought of from Google or from Bing. And what I mean by that is, you know, you spend a lot of time getting your content house in order, getting your site working, and all the complexities that go with that. It's very important that your products are findable. It's very important that you have the right metadata around your products so they're not showing up on page 5 of Google. Because again, remember that, and you all know this, that decision maker, that decision maker, that researcher is often different from that procurement person. So if they can't find your product, they're not going to buy it. Product content, really, that is the foundation. And that's probably one of your biggest challenges as you embark upon sort of leveraging sort of B2C mindset, understanding what consumers are expecting. But getting that right sort of gives you the agility, I'll use that term, the agility to offer a lot of different experiences, even if it's a flash sales site with excess product that you have, or maybe it's an event-based microsite, or maybe it's offering product content views that you haven't thought of before. I'll talk about a little of that. Ratings and reviews. So depending on the products that you're selling, that can be marginally valuable or really valuable. People are looking for like-minded individuals. They want to understand, okay, what's the form factor? I can read all the specs and maybe sometimes the information's light, but how did that really fit? Did it run large? Did it run small? Did the chiller chill as much as it needed to? Did the bolt fit? You know, whatever the situation may be. And then certainly I think it goes without saying, but probably not, which is why it's on the slide, the ability to cross-sell and upsell. For many of you, inserting or promoting the next best substitute, might be a product you carry, might be a product you manufacture, is a very important capability, as well as a customer sat capability that you want to focus on. So a couple visuals to go with this. Personalization, I think I talked about that, so I'm gonna whiz by this. Search. So here's an example of a lot of, and I hope I protected the innocent. I had to work really hard, so if this is one of your sites, you can kick me in the shin later, I apologize. But, so we're looking for a rasticizer. I don't really actually know what that is, but the challenge is, you see the search results, and what I'm trying to get across is it's just coming across sort of blank and generic. I have no visuals. I can't differentiate one search result entry from the next. So not really rich, not really inviting. I'll give them kudos because they do have some filtering capability, so I could drill down based on the type of content I'm looking for. But again, not meeting my expectation as a consumer, so probably not meeting your customer's expectations. Here's a better one. Another call out to Susie. Sorry, Susie, you're just happen to sit right there. But so great example of site search that includes more rich visuals, more rich content, aesthetically pleasing to the eye. I can filter. Again, filters again here on the left side, but it's a lot more user-friendly. So great example of kind of let's take the next step. Let's make that more user-friendly. Even going further, and this is probably pushing it pretty far, the Fab site, just searching for the word purple and just getting visual search results back. I'm not suggesting everyone go out and do this. I'm really more just highlighting where's this going, and this is internal site search. Again, we don't have enough time to really talk about some other kind of digital marketing or search engine optimization concepts. Maybe one of the last couple topics I'll talk about is product content. So this happens to be a very technical refrigerator that holds plasma. So it's sold by a company called VWR out of Philadelphia. We had the opportunity to work with a few years back, and they had a lot of efforts focused on enabling rich content. So you could look at that and say, wow, they did a great job. Look at all that content. I would say that's really hard to read. I can't glance quickly. The information's not chunked, so it's really not written for the web per se. It's not written for me to digest it. It's probably not written well to sort of morph to a tablet experience or a smartphone experience, but they have content there. I can click to see a larger image, so it's okay, right? We'll look at their counterpart. So here's ABT, a local appliance company here in Chicago. Just a super rich page that talks about a refrigerator. Not the same one. I'm not going to put plasma in this. This is a general refrigerator, but you can see it has a lot of, customer reviews are easy to see. I can see a lot of different pictures. I can play a demo, so I can actually see a video. Again, I'm just trying to get across the point that this is what customers are expecting. It's going to take a lot of time and effort for VWR to get there, but it might be important because they're making a pretty big purchasing decision. To even, drain this even further, this page goes, below the fold, and there's a lot of rich information. Now I'm getting into the tabular content that a lot of us expect as we're looking for very technical information about a product. Over on the left-hand side, I can see, if I got this right, accessories that maybe go with that product. So you see a lot of cross-sell and upsell happening. I think it's kind of a fun comparison. So as we sort of build on the product content here, bear with me. I didn't want to try to do a live demo. This is something we're doing in our labs at Accenture, but the idea is what you see on the left, sort of walk with me on this. So let's say you walk up to a product. Could be a decision maker walking into a warehouse. Could be walking into out in the field looking at a piece of equipment, and they know they need to do something. They need to react to something. They need to buy something. So what I've done here is I've held up my smartphone literally over the label. There's no UPC code, no barcode, no QR code, no anything. And all of a sudden, this rich content has appeared on my smartphone screen. So again, as you get your content house in order, you can do these kinds of things. And I might tailor that to the person. So again, this is demonstrative, but here I could like the product. I could get some loyalty points. I could learn about warnings or benefits for that particular product. And it's just really trying to illustrate the art of possible and where things are going. So if you're walking down a grocery aisle, that may be a model that we use. I don't know, may not. But again, it's just an example of where things are going and why product content is so important. Maybe a little bit more germane to a business conversation. Again, same visual, looking at a smartphone. So envision that it's a physical representation of a smartphone with some information around it. Again, with my smartphone, looking at the smartphone, all of a sudden I get information tailored to me. But what's interesting to note, the price is still the same, so I really didn't get a break on the price, but I got some information that's specific to me, so it knows who I am. It's saying, okay, you want to consider this Samsung product. Here's how it compares to the Nokia device that I know you have. I mean, how great is that? It sort of invites me to, they understand who I am. So again, just a richer experience. Ratings and reviews, super important. Obviously, Grainger has deployed that. I think we've talked about the benefit of that. So lastly, what do we do? What do we take away? What are next steps? So I have 7 points to highlight here somewhat rapidly. And I'll probably stress the first one, because many of us have been thrust into these initiatives without the ability to kind of do some real research. Now that we know the consumer expectations have evolved so dramatically and are so strong, and I think some of the terms are used earlier today were they're in control. I don't know that I'd go that far. Do some research with your customer base. Get the voice of the customer. I can't say enough how strongly I feel about that. Super important. And you might do ethnographic research where you're getting into those scenarios. You understand what's the moment of truth for them. When are they making that buying decision? When are they making that decision they need the product, your product? And then develop personas. Personas are super important because they sort of amalgamate demographic marketing information with need states of those consumers or those customers. And that'll help you sort of depoliticize, should we deploy this or deploy that, or kind of make feature trade-off decisions. When you have that information, these are 1 and 2 are kind of inputs to number 3. Figure out who some of the change agents are within your organization. And maybe even hire an outside organization to help ideate, what are the new scenarios we could enable? What are some of the barriers that we haven't thought we could overcome before? How might we tackle those if we think about our physical capabilities, our online capabilities, mobile, where does that come into play? Then get support for change. So, I've heard kind of multiple scenarios where, and I think it was said this morning, where executives are just worried about the hockey stick. Well, yeah, we all want the revenue to grow, but what about the curve where customers are leaving your organization? So getting the voice of the customer and talking to your executive team to get support, to get budget is super important. And then we always believe, build your plan in phase steps. What that will allow you to do is sort of obviously get some success, get some deployment, but then measure the results, adjust the plan, and then execute the next phase. The last thing, again, sort of trying to infuse some more B2C sort of thinking here is build in some multivariate testing capabilities. So what I mean by that is, as you have product detail pages, as you have landing pages, as you have category pages, as you have smartphone experiences, as you have tablet experiences, try different treatments, try different scenarios, try big images, try small images. I mean, you can come up with the right tests, but engage in some of that multivariate testing so you can improve your conversion. So with that, the last thing I'll say is remember, your customers are more than an order. So thank you.